The next thing I want to do is make this stroke wider. It needs to be 9mm. So we'll go to the fill and stroke palette down here. I'm just going to scroll down so that I can see it. And it's set on the stroke style tab, which gives the width of the stroke. So I'm going to set that to 9. And we're getting somewhere near what we want to be. Just remind you, all this is happening on the pattern layer. The lower layer is locked. Okay, this stroke that we've got here is not a path, it's an object. This is indicated because it's only got these two simple adjuster handles on it. If we go to path and stroke to path, it'll convert that stroke to a path in its own right. You'll see what I mean in a minute. We're going to use this function quite frequently later on in the tutorial, so it's well to commit this keyboard shortcut to mind. It's Control, Alt and C. So I'll do that, and you'll see that those two handles have disappeared and they've been replaced by these nodes on the outside perimeter and the inside perimeter of this figure. This means that I can now select its colour by simply clicking on these colours without pressing the shift key, because this is now a path in its own right, which is a path without a stroke. If I click on green, you see it turns to green. I've not held the shift key to do that. I'm just going to go back to black for the time being. Now, this is not a perfectly symmetrical figure. It may look it, but I can see some imperfections on it. But we can make it symmetrical, and it needs to be more or less symmetrical for the later parts of the drawing. It will make life a lot easier for us. So to do that, I'm just going to zoom out a touch, and I'm going to draw a rectangle which overlaps it from its centre. So I start on this centre guideline, snap to it, and drag out an ellipse which overlaps it. Sorry, a rectangle which overlaps it. This actually has a stroke at the minute, which if I hold shift key and press green, you'll see it's got a stroke. I don't want a stroke, so I'm going to shift and click on this X over in this corner. So the stroke's gone, and now that right hand edge of this rectangle is aligned with the centre of this black petal shape. Just to make life even more simple, I'm going to turn off the visibility of layer 1 because that's a bit distracting at the minute. I can turn it back on again later if I want to. So now I'm going to modify this petal shape. I'm going to slice it in half using this rectangle. The way to do that, I've already got the rectangle selected. Let's turn that red so that it makes life a bit more visible. Hold down the shift key and click on the petal shape. So both of those are now selected. And the function that I use next is the path difference function. And what that does is, any shape that is drawn on top of another shape, in other words, it's been drawn later on than the first shape, will be used to cut the lower shape and discard the part that's overlapped by the first shape. So if we go to path and difference, and the keyboard shortcut for that, again we'll be using that quite frequently, is Control and minus key, and the rectangle disappears and it just leaves this single half here. So now I need to duplicate that, so I'm going to say Control and D on the keyboard. Change that colour to green so that we can see it's something different. And then I'm going to use this button up here, flip selected object horizontally. Click on that, and you can see we have two objects. I'm now going to slide this over and join it up to this black piece. So let's zoom in so that we can see exactly what we're doing. Click and drag on the green. If you want to keep it moving horizontally, if you hold the control key down, it will restrain the movement to purely the horizontal and not allow you to move up and down. And when you get close, it will snap to the original figure. Just zoom out again and pan down to the bottom and have a look at this. And we've got a slight imperfection there. I think I will deal with that at this stage. So we've got two objects here, they're not joined together. So if I click on the edit pass by nodes, it shows the nodes that are forming this green path on the left. I'm going to click on that red one and just drag it down. And pull that handle around so that it lines up with it, and pull that handle around so that it lines up with it. And that has made it straight. And I'm now going to do the same to the black one. So if I click on the black one, it shows the nodes on that one now. So click on that node and drag it down to there, and it's helpfully snapped to the angle on the green path. Pull that handle down to make a straight line, and pull that handle up to make a straight line there, and Bob's your uncle. I can zoom out again now. Another thing that I want to do to make sure, absolutely sure, that there are no gaps when I've unified these two into a single path, is I'm going to drag the edge of the green path to overlap the black path ever so slightly. I'll zoom in, move onto the edge of it, just make sure I've got the green one selected to begin with. I'll just click on that and then go back to the edit pass by nodes again, move to the line and click and drag and just move a bit of a curve over there. Zoom out, pan down to the top, zoom in and do the same at the top of it, like that. If I zoom out now, go back to the select tool, the green one is selected already, hold the shift key down and select the black one, so they are both selected. If I go to path and union, the shortcut for that is Control and plus. These are now formed into a single path, and that will be perfectly symmetrical, which is what we want. So the next thing that I want to do, we've got our petal complete now, so I need to make copies of that and rotate them 72 degrees and make 5 copies of it. Before I do that, I need to change the centre of rotation. And I previously created a guide, which is this one here, which is actually 41.098 millimeters from this intersection guideline here, and I made sure that it was exactly that by using the method I used earlier in the tutorial, drawing a rectangle and dragging a guideline down to the top of the rectangle. I don't need to show you that again. So I'll click again on the petal shape and get hold of the centre of rotation, which is already there. I've already moved it. Make sure it's on that intersection there. Now we can duplicate it, so we do Control and D and click apply, and we get first rotation. Control and D again to duplicate again. Apply, Control and D again. Apply, Control and D again. Apply, and we now have the basis for our figure. I'm now going to change the colour of each of those so that it makes it easier to do the next part of the construction of this pattern. So we will use these in turn and change that to violet. We'll change that one to blue. Change that one to green. Change that one to yellow. Change that one to red. So now we need to start cutting the gaps in these petals to simulate the overlap of the intertwining Celtic pattern that we're aiming for. So before we go any further, we will save this. So I'll do Control and S. And if you are fairly inexperienced in Inkscape, I suggest you do Control and Shift S. If I do that now, Control Shift S, and it will give you the opportunity to give it a new name. So you could choose, if I were doing this, I would use YouTube tutorial 01, 02, etc. so that I can go back to previous versions if I make a complete mess of it. So I'll just cancel that. I don't want to do that now. Okay, so now we're going to cut the gaps in between the loops. And I will go through this steadily and slowly so that you can follow this, because it starts to get a little complicated here. So let us zoom in to this intersection here, and what I'm aiming for is for this violet loop to be on top of the underlying loop. Now it looks like there are two loops. When we finish this pattern, the yellow loop will have disappeared. So we're just concentrating on the blue loop. So we need to cut a gap between the blue loop and the violet one above it and below it. So this is how we're going about it. The first thing we need to do is click on the violet one to make sure it's selected and duplicate it. So we do Control D for duplicate. I'm going to change the colour of it so that I know it's a temporary layer. So what colour shall we give it that we haven't used already? We'll use pale blue. And now I'm going to draw a path around this intersection. So go to the Bezier tool. Shortcut for that is Shift and F6. And we can turn off snapping for this because it won't help us. It'll in fact hinder us a little bit if we're not careful. So just click the Enable Snapping button. Shortcut for that is the % key, but to get the % key you need to press the Shift and hit the 5 key. So there you go. So we just click once, move the mouse, click again, again, again. This doesn't need to be precise. When we get back to the beginning, it turns red. Click on that. Get the Select tool, and this is already selected. If it's not, click on it again. Hold the Shift key down and click on the pale blue loop. And now we're going to choose Path Intersection. So we'll go to Path and Intersection, and the shortcut for that is Control and the asterisk key, but you need to press the Shift key for it, so it's Control Shift asterisk. So I'm going to do that. So Control Shift and asterisk, and you'll see that the pale blue loop has now disappeared, and it's left this block overlapping the original violet layer. I need to now give that a stroke, so we go down and choose a colour. I'm going to choose orange. Hold the shift key down and click orange, and it produces a stroke around that. The stroke is too big because it's probably gone back to 9mm. If I go to the fill and stroke tab, just scroll down so that we can see it properly. Yes, it's gone to 9mm. I want that stroke to be 3.5mm. Again, I know this from experience, so I type in 3.5. Now I'm going to be using that stroke with repeatedly over and over again, so I'm going to highlight it and do Control C to copy it, or you could right click it and just click copy. And now I need to change that stroke into a path. So it's Control, Alt and C. Or you go to path and stroke to path. There it is, Control, Alt, C. That is now a path. And now I need to do something called cut path. So it's Control, Alt. Sorry, I'm mistaken there. I need to combine it, so it is Control and K. Sorry, I misled you there. It is path break apart, which is the one that I want now. It's Shift, Control and K. So you'll see that fill in the centre of it. Now I want to combine that centre, which is indicated by this yellow bounding box, with the outside of it. So I go to Path, Union, so that's Control and plus, Control Shift and plus I should say. So that's one block now. So that is now going to give us the correct depth of cut between the violet path and the blue path. But I will also need to cut the yellow path. Sorry, I've clicked on that accidentally. Click back on that. So I'm going to make a duplicate of that, so Control and D. Now I'm going to hold Shift so that this is selected and the blue path. And then I'm going to go to Path, Difference, which is Control and minus. Now nothing appears to have happened because this duplicate copy is covering it up, but if I click and move it to one side, you can see that it's cut the blue path. I've just noticed that there's also a black path underneath it as well that I'm going to cut, so I'm going to duplicate that again after I've moved it back. So I'll do Control and Z. I'm going to do Control and D again, cut the yellow path, so Shift and select the yellow path, then Path, Difference, and that's now cut the yellow path. If I zoom out, I can't see the black path that's underneath there, it's right at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is select the blue path, and using these controls here I'm going to move it to the bottom of the objects. So I press that, and now the black path has appeared. So if I click on the orange again and click on the black one, I can now go to Path, Difference, and now we have our gap that I've been aiming for. Now that all sounded very complicated, I have no doubt. Don't worry about it. We are going to do the same again all the way around this path. So that's the first cut that we need to make. So the pattern that we're doing follows the rule: once a path has gone under, the next time it goes over, and vice versa. So this pink path has gone over the other paths, so it's now going to go under, so we need to make this one the top path and cut spaces in the paths below. So I'm going to duplicate the red path, so to Control D, I'm going to change it to green, dark green. Try again. There we go. And again we go to the Draw Bezier Curves and Straight Lines tool and draw around the intersection. And when it goes red, we can finish the path. So now we get the Select tool. The path I've just drawn is already selected. Hold the Shift down, click on the violet path. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to click off it again. Click on the path I've just drawn and click on the green path because that's what we want to intersect with. And then we go to Path, Intersection, keyboard shortcut, it's Control Shift and Asterisk, and it forms an intersection of those two paths. Now we want to give this green patch a stroke, so I'll hold Shift down and click on yellow, and again the stroke's too big. I need to change it in the stroke style tab to 3.5. I've just copied that because I'm going to use it again. Hit enter, and now I need to change that stroke to a path. So we go to Path, Stroke to Path, that's Control Alt C. And now I need to break apart, that's Shift Control K. And now I need to join those two pieces together. So that's Path Union, that's Control Shift and Plus. And again, we're not just going to cut the violet path, but we're also going to cut other paths underneath it. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to do it 3 times. If it's too many, it doesn't really matter. So Control D, Control D, and Control D. So I'm holding the Shift key down and selecting the violet path, and then I go to Path, Difference, which is Control minus, and I can see there's a green path under there, so I'm going to move the green path up in the order. So I'll click on the green path and click this button. No, sorry, I'll click this button which raises it 1 level, and I'll do it again, and it's now just underneath this yellow one. So I'll hold Shift down and click on the yellow patch, and then go to Path, Difference, and just move this to one side and the other one to one side, and we've cut through all the paths that are underneath, so I don't need these patches. I'm going to delete them and delete that one. So that's the red path dealt with. So if we follow the red path around, it's gone over the other paths, so now it goes under. So the next path we want to raise to the top is the yellow path, and I'm going to duplicate that, so I do Control and D. I'm going to change the colour of that to dark green and get the Bezier pen again and draw a path around it. Get the select tool and click on the green path that we made, and I need to intersect those. So that's path, intersection, Control Shift asterisk, and again I need to give this green patch a path, a stroke. I'm not going to use yellow this time because we're operating on a yellow path, so I'll just use pale blue. So hold the Shift key down, give it a stroke. Again, the strokes come up to 9. So I copied the 3.5 before, so I will do Control and V for Victor, which pastes it in, hit enter. We have the stroke there. I now want to convert that stroke to a path. So that's Control, Alt and C. And now I need to do path, break apart, Shift Control K. And then to unify that, I need to do Control, Shift and plus. Again, there are several paths underneath that I need to cut, so I'm going to duplicate that 3 times. Control D, Control D, Control D, and that's selected, so I hold the Shift key down and click on the red path, and then Control, Shift and minus, reselect the duplicate, and I can see there is a black path underneath there, so I'll hold down the Shift key and click on the black path and do Control, Shift and minus. Let's just move that out of the way and see if we need to do any more. We've got 2 of them there. Yes, I need the blue path doing, so I'll do Control Z to put that patch back over. Can't see the blue path, so I'm going to click on the black path and move that to the bottom. There's the blue path, I can see it again now. So we click once on the turquoise patch, click on the blue path, and then do Control, Shift and minus, and now we've made that cut for the yellow path.